Well, hello, welcome to Conversations from 6 Feet. It's actually nice to be outside. This was the original vision for our piece. Then we had to go inside, and I am sitting down with Arlis Galloway, who is a neighbor, covenant partner. And since she's a neighbor, since you're a neighbor, Arlis, it was easy to come over and do the 6 foot distance thing. And Beth Moss and Robin Serrain, the rest of our medical team, is very happy that we're honoring the 6 foot distance here. If you've been following along with our series, you've known that what this is about is providing practical tips to get through this coronavirus situation that we're in. But really, over the past couple of conversations, Arlis, what we've done is use this as an opportunity to plant some seeds. How do we live, not just right now, but going forward? And what are some ways that maybe this has been an opportunity to rethink, to reset? And so with that, I'm just really delighted to introduce you all to Arlis Galloway, and we're going to be talking about letter writing. So Arlis, but first, before we go anywhere, I want to tell us just a little bit about yourself.
About myself, well, I've been a member here for 20 years, and I'm a Yankee, and now a confirmed Southerner, and I love it down here. I've been an English teacher, I've been a Christian educator, and now I'm enjoying using whatever gifts I have in the church.
And thank you, Arlis, and that just prompts me to think about thanking you all. You all have done a lot over the past few weeks, bringing out your own gifts, and I think we've all seen some of that. You know, one of the things that I've seen on our Wednesday Night Live the past couple of weeks, it's been so neat to hear from the Lehman family and the Niner family bringing their gift of music to us from their homes. I've known people who have gone to the care center in Cornelius and have really done some serving there. I think of the ladies and others who are making masks. One of our covenant partners is making angels, and another is writing cards, all as an expression of the gifts that God has given them. So people are doing that, and you're doing that as well. You have an idea, and it's a meaningful project really for our church and other churches, but it applies to people of all ages, and I'm wondering if you could share about that a little.
Yes, during this time of sheltering in place, we're experiencing something really historic that in 10 to 20 years our memories may fade. But what if those of us sheltering in place of all ages began now recording our thoughts, whether you call it journaling or letters to yourself that you would read later, or letters for a future generation? And I first thought of this as something that children could do. What if the parents each day would ask the children to answer a question, or 2 or 3, and write their thoughts, or if they're too young to write their thoughts, mom and dad can record them, write them down. They will save these letters. But I'm thinking of questions like, why are we sheltering in place? What's happening in our world? How does sheltering in place help us? How does it help other people? What do I miss most about my old life that I can't do right now? What have I discovered that I can do that I'm enjoying more? Maybe being with the family a lot more. What is my family doing to help others? What am I doing to help others? Have I seen God? Any God sightings in all of this? I'm sure the parents could adjust this and make it age appropriate for their children.
Arlis, as you were listing those questions, and they're terrific questions, I was thinking of myself how I'd ask them, but that's a lot of questions.
Oh, it's on purpose. I think parents are looking for ways to not only keep their children busy, but to make it a meaningful time for them. And this is an opportunity for the parents to help them voice their emotions and their feelings about it. And something very, very special that they will give to the children. Just think, of putting this in a time capsule for later years. And they don't have to answer every question. One or two a day might be helpful. Or they might do it once a week and see how their feelings have changed about it.
Now, should parents participate?
Oh, the parents have to do their own.
Okay.
I think there's an adult version of this that could be honest and reflective. Has it been difficult for their marriage? What do they feel that God is teaching them through this? What are the emotions they're going through? What do they see in the future for this country? But there's a lot of questions the parents can answer in addition to the ones their children are dealing with.
Yeah. Now, what about our covenant partners or others in other situations who are looking in who are going through this truly isolated? They don't have children at home. They don't have a spouse. What about them?
That's a really good question. Well, that happens to be a real passion of mine, Tom, because I feel like one of the most important things we leave behind is not necessarily our money or our stuff, much of which is going to end up in a dump somewhere, but our thoughts and maybe our prayers for the next generation. You may be living alone, but you have loved ones, whether they're friends or family. What if you could spend an hour or two or even more writing down your thoughts, your memories, your prayers for the people that you love, and leave these to be shared perhaps after you've died?
You know, I think about that idea. And the letter, we've moved around so many times that I hardly keep a thing, let alone letters. But there is one letter that I have kept, and I won't go into details on it, but it's been probably the most meaningful letter in my life. It's from my daughter. I have it to this day. I think of other letters that have meant a lot because of the meaning and power of words that's written down. I think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s letters from a Birmingham jail.
Yes.
I think of the various letters from prison that Bonhoeffer wrote, and that Eric Metaxas captured in his wonderful biography on Bonhoeffer, but it was basically all through these letters. I think of the letters from Paul in his prison. We just studied Philemon, the letter from Jude to his community, from Paul to the Philippians. Letters have made a huge impact on people.
They have. I come from a family of letter writing. I have a whole series of letters written by a Confederate soldier ancestor of mine about his experiences in the war and about a revival that came to camp. We cherish these letters. I saved the letters of my grandfather to my grandmother when he was courting her. And my granddaughter found them one day, age 14, and sat there reading the letters and said, "Oh, Grandma, I want to find a man like my great-great-grandfather."
Wow.
But I think the most meaningful letter from my past was a very simple letter from my father, written to my mother and to us 3 children. We didn't find it until several weeks after the funeral, and it was a love letter to my mother and to us. He had put it in a place he knew we wouldn't find it until after his death. And it was a letter of love and encouragement and faith and a prayer for us that we would follow in that faith. And that has meant so much to me.
So I understand that one of the things that you have done is letters with hospice patients. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And how did you get started?
That started rather accidentally. I had heard that a single mom with an adolescent daughter in my church had terminal cancer. And I felt that, I didn't know her well, but I felt that nudge from God to give her a call. And I called her, and a very weak voice answered, and I said, I identified myself, and I said, have you written letters to your daughter? And there was a long silence, and I could tell she was crying. And she said, no, and it's too late now. And I said, no, it's not. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Wow. So over the course of the next week to 10 days, I sat with her and asked her a lot of questions and got a real feel for what she felt and hoped and remembered and everything about her daughter. And I helped her. I wrote 8 different letters and would read each one to her for her final approval, and then she would sign it. She died 2 days after we finished the letters. At her funeral, this young adolescent girl stood up and went up to the podium, opened up a letter, and said, "This is the letter my mom left for me." And I knew then this had to be a mission of mine, to help people, to encourage people to write those letters. So that's how it got started.
Was that difficult for you to write at hospice?
Sometimes it was very difficult. Often in hospice, they're on many meds and they're not very alert, and I have to keep waking them up. If I don't know them or their family, it's very, very difficult to make them as personal as the letters need to be. I feel like God blessed it, but I always wished that they would have written that letter on their own before they needed a total stranger to come in and help them.
Sure. Now, I think you started out by talking about some questions that people may want to consider. What would be some questions that people?
Well, the questions I used for hospice may be the questions that you ask yourself as you're writing a letter to be left behind for loved ones. You might include a special memory. What did you enjoy doing with that person? Did you go to ball games? Did you fish? Did you shop? Did you cook? What were the things that you enjoyed with that person? What are some of the gifts and abilities and talents that you see in that person that you want to write a letter to? How can you affirm them and their direction? I think it's very good to include something of your own faith story. What has been most meaningful to you in your own walk of faith? And share that. Maybe you could include a prayer for them in their own faith walk. These are letters that will reach down and touch them possibly in years to come.
What a powerful way to connect people, not just with ourselves, each other, but with God. And one of the things that people get really nervous when I am done some interviews with folks who don't like telling their story, whether this really helps or not, or they're just telling me because I'm a pastor, I don't know. But one of the things I like to tell people is that you're telling God's story, not yours.
Oh, that's so true.
You're telling God's story in you.
Yes.
Not your own story.
Yes.
And that's something to celebrate, isn't it?
Yes. How have you seen God working in you?
Yeah.
You may choose to write only one letter that the whole family shares, and maybe they read it after your death as they're thinking about your funeral.
Sure.
But even more meaningful is writing a letter for each person in your family or a close friend and what that friendship has meant to you.
Sure.
Through the years.
So what do we do with these once when they're written?
Well, if you've handwritten them or whether you've put it on the computer and printed them off, sign them. Definitely use your own signature. That's important. Tuck them in an envelope. Put them perhaps with your funeral file to be saved. If you're doing it digitally, then maybe it's a DVD that you're creating. But I kind of like the idea of a letter on paper best.
Sure. I think people are going to be changed by doing this. As we tell our story, we discover so much.
We discover who we are.
We do.
We discover who God meant us to be, and maybe God even calls us into our future, as well as speaking to the future of others.
Well, and I hope you all are able to take away from this conversation with Arlis, certainly her passion for this, but maybe God is going to use this, the Holy Spirit will plant a seed, that this may be something that is for you. And I know that Joy and I certainly will look at this as a way to share a legacy and to compose that, even with our own parents.
Yeah.
Any last words? Anything last you wanted to say?
Well, it occurred to me, maybe I scared away those who say I'm not much of a writer. Even 20 meaningful words on a sheet of paper, the shortest of letters. I love you all.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for caring for me. It doesn't have to be profound.
Thank you all for joining us for this Conversations from 6 Feet. It's just been absolutely splendid. Arlis, thanks for taking the time. You've got a lovely garden here. And one of the things that people have commented from the Easter service and part of our devotions that we do each day is it's nice to see the outside.
Yes, it is.
It's wonderful to be outside, and I hope that you all take some time and just encounter God's pulpit. It's nature. His creation is beautiful. He's there. He's in it, and He speaks to us through it. And we thank you again for joining us, and look forward to our next Conversations from 6 Feet. Have a blessed day.